Hey everyone, my name is Daniel Levine and I'm the owner and founder of Dasher and Crank Ice Cream here in Miami, Florida. Dasher and Crank is a craft ice cream shop located in the Wynwood neighborhood in which we make all of our ice creams in-house from scratch using local and premium ingredients. Since we opened almost 3 years ago, we've made over 450 flavors and we put out new flavors every single week. Today, we're going to be tasting some ice creams that you can find at your local supermarket, wherever you are in the country. I have no idea what we're going to be tasting. All I know is there's going to be 5 different brands of vanilla ice cream. All right, so I'm excited to taste our first vanilla. Let's see what we got here. I did taste them all before we started just to make sure that melting wasn't going to be an issue. So let's take a look at our first one here. When you're tasting ice cream, the first thing that you're going to want to do is analyze it visually. So if we take a look at this one, you'll see there are a lot of specks in it, right? So what those are the seeds from the vanilla bean itself. Vanilla gets a bad rep, you know. At our shop, we do all these crazy flavors, and whenever someone orders a vanilla ice cream, the rest of the people in the group kind of make fun of them. They're like, how could you possibly eat vanilla? That's so boring, that's so plain. But I'm gonna try to make a case for why you should treat people who order vanilla ice cream with a bit more respect. Vanilla is the most popular flavor in the United States by far, and there's a reason for it. It's delicious. The vanilla bean is a very complicated fruit, really. Well, I don't know if it's technically called a fruit. So it's actually the stamen of a special orchid that only grows in very few places across the world. So Madagascar, Tahiti, they're making them in Costa Rica now. Also, there's a small part of Mexico that's making them. But that's about it. You really can't grow them in many places, and it's a complicated process. Each orchid needs to be individually pollinated. A lot goes into it, but the reason why we put so much effort into it is because vanillin, the aromatic compound that gives vanilla its unique taste, is really special. You can really judge the quality of an ice cream shop by their vanilla. You know, in order to get some of the crazy flavors right, you really need to make sure that you got the basics down. And vanilla, there's not a lot of room to hide. The quality of your ingredients are going to shine through, and the quality of your base is going to be really apparent. Whether you're using real vanilla beans or vanilla extract or vanilla paste, it all shows through in your vanilla ice cream. Without further ado, let's taste the first ice cream. As we said, it's obvious that this one is a vanilla bean as opposed to just a vanilla using vanilla extract, as we can see the specks in the ice cream. It's holding its shape pretty well. I've been talking for way too long, and it's melted a little bit, but it's held its shape, which makes me think that it's stabilized somehow. Either it's a custard and that's helping it hold its texture, or there's some artificial stabilizers in there, which doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing. Stabilizers are really effective in home ice cream sales because a lot of people take the ice cream in and out of the freezer a lot, and that could degrade the quality. Sorry, without further ado, let's try this thing. All right, so right off the bat, I can tell by the way it's holding its shape over here, this is a high butterfat ice cream. Wow, that one's actually really good. I'm really curious to which brand this one is because as far as supermarket ice cream goes, I don't remember them being this good. When you're tasting ice cream, there's a few metrics that you want to focus on. Taste, obviously, that's you know, what happens on your tongue and in your nose, you know, through retro olfaction. On this, I'm getting all of those beautiful vanilla profiles. I'm getting some woodiness, a little bit of smokiness, but not like traditional smoke. I'm definitely getting the sweetness and just a lot of complexity. This is really good. In addition to taste, you also want to focus on texture. Texture is what happens between, you know, your tongue and the roof of your palate. Is it creamy? Is it gritty? How creamy? Is it icy? And this is just a, you know, luxurious ice cream. It is super creamy. And that's probably from all the butter fat in there. It's really rich and it's really delicious. I don't think any other ice cream's gonna beat it. That's ice cream number 1. Let's go for number 2. All right, so time for ice cream number 2. Let's jump right in. On a first visual inspection, we'll see not nearly as many vanilla bean bits in there. So it already, and also if you look at the texture, you can see it's not nearly as much butter fat. It doesn't look as creamy. It actually looks a bit icy. So I do not have as much faith that this one will be as good as that first one, which really kind of blew me away. Oh, yeah. not as good. First thing with taste, I'm getting just like overwhelming sweetness. It's like a sugar bomb. Another thing that you want to analyze with the ice cream, so I said taste, texture, also mouthfeel and finish. So, you know, the way that the fat stays on your tongue, it should be like a luxurious experience, and it should stay with you for a while and evolve on your palate. This one dies right away, telling me it's low butter fat. You know, there really aren't many secrets when it comes to making ice cream. Once you understand the science behind it, it's all really decisions. So there are a few major decisions that an ice cream manufacturer has to make. The first is the amount of butter fat that you use. Ice cream is defined as a frozen milk product that has at least 10% butter fat or more, right? And the traditional range is between like 10, and I've heard it getting as high as 17% butter fat. Any, fattier than that, and you're gonna be making butter, not ice cream. So at Dasher & Crank, we do a 16% butterfat ice cream, and all the best ice creams across the country do the same. But to save on cost, sometimes manufacturers will skimp on the amount of butterfat, and that's what they did here. This kind of tastes like a commodity ice cream, maybe like a Breyers or something. It tastes very artificial. They're definitely using vanilla extract as opposed to vanilla paste or real vanilla beans. You're gonna say that one's not as good. I'm ready for the next one. So we've got our third ice cream here, and let's take a look. This one, it's harder to tell. There's definitely not as much vanilla bean in this one as there was in the first. It's about the same as the second. However, I can tell just by the look that there's more butterfat in here. This is creamier. You can see these striations. That indicates a higher presence of milk protein. At Dasher & Crank, we make 5 different styles of bases. Well, even more than that, but mostly 5 different styles of bases. And to some of them, we add non-fat milk powder to increase the protein content of our ice cream, which just helps with the texture. So this one seems like it may have some milk powder in it, but it looks pretty good. I like the color. Oh wow, it's dense. So I can tell, one, just by lifting it, but also as I put my spoon through it, I had a lot more resistance, which what that means is it's a denser ice cream, meaning that it has less overrun. So I said that controlling the butterfat is one of the decisions that an ice cream manufacturer has to make, but the second decision is the amount of overrun. So a way that I like to think about ice cream is as a frozen and stabilized foam. Think back when you were a kid and you would drink milk out of a straw and you would blow air back into it and you would get all these bubbles coming up. That's essentially a foam, and ice cream is a frozen and stabilized foam. It's stabilized by freezing it and also by churning the fat, right? So the butter fat gets smashed into globules and smeared, and then that fat matrix kind of helps stabilize it. One of the ways that you can judge the quality of supermarket ice cream is by flipping over the label and looking at the calorie content. So the lower the calorie of your ice cream, typically the more air is in your ice cream, because there's not a lot of room to hide with ice cream, right? It's cream, sugar, and then whatever the flavor. And the flavor typically doesn't contribute most of the calories. It's the sugar and it's the butter fat, right? So if it's less calories, it's typically just worse quality ice cream. So one, flip over the ingredients, and second, weigh it. So ice cream is packaged by volume, not by mass. You can have a pint of ice cream that weighs twice as much as another pint of ice cream because one may have 100% overrun as opposed to another which may have 50% overrun, or sometimes even as low as 30. Air is a crucial part of ice cream. Without air, ice cream wouldn't be scoopable. It'll essentially be like a frozen sweetened milk ice cube. This one I could tell they're really pushing the envelope, reducing the amount of overrun, making it a very dense ice cream. That's really good. I wouldn't call this a vanilla bean ice cream. I saw a few specks in there, but there's not a lot of vanilla bean. That's not always a problem. They're definitely using probably a blend of vanilla bean and vanilla extract. It's very tasty. It's a bit, I would say the texture is definitely the best thing they've got going on here. Vanilla is coming through very subtle. It's a mild vanilla flavor as opposed to that first one, which was just like showing off how good it was. This is the one that you want for a cookie, for a brownie a la mode. This one goes on your apple pie. You can tell that the quality of ingredients are really high here, probably using high quality cream, organic, something like that. That's really good. So we've got ice cream number 4 here. Looks like it did a little bit more melting which that can mean a few things. One, maybe it just spent more time out of the freezer, or it was too close to the door, which I think this is a great opportunity to talk about proper ice cream maintenance. This is a topic that I'm very passionate about. You need to make sure that you're treating it with care. Right, so when you're making ice cream, you're putting it through a machine called a batch freezer. And what that machine is doing is it's whipping air into your ice cream while churning the fat. But while it's also doing that, it's freezing your ice cream quickly. Milk is essentially, and cream as well, is essentially a suspension of water, protein, and fat. But most of it's water, like 60% or something like that. When water freezes, the speed at which it freezes controls the length at which ice crystals get to form. The faster you freeze your ice cream, the smaller the ice crystals form, and they form so small you can't even notice them on your tongue, and your ice cream tastes creamy. If your cream freezes slowly, that's giving those ice crystals a lot of time to get really large, and you're often ending up with icy ice cream. At home, what that means is minimize the amount of time that your ice cream is outside of your freezer. It should be the last thing that you buy at the supermarket. Put it in the back of your freezer. I see a lot of people putting their ice cream on the door of the freezer, so that way every time you open and close the door, it's warming up and cooling down, and it goes through that cycle, right? And essentially what's happening is the outside of your ice cream melts and then freezes again in the freezer. And when it freezes in your home freezer, it's freezing very slowly, creating those large ice crystals. Unless you're planning on crushing a pint, which is how I like to eat my ice cream, put it into a bowl and portion out what you want, and then put the rest back in the freezer right away so it doesn't melt too much. And one last tip about proper ice cream maintenance, when you're done scooping your ice cream out of the pint, use the back of your spoon to smooth out the surface of the ice cream. That reduces the surface area, or the amount of ice cream that's touching the air, and that's also going to help preserve the quality of your ice cream. All right, now that PSA is out of the way, let's dive into ice cream number 4. All right, so as we said, a little melty. Maybe that was a transportation issue. Might also be a higher sugar content ice cream. So part of the reason why we add sugar to ice cream is not only to make the ice cream taste sweet, but it's also to reduce the freezing point of the base. Sugar kind of acts like antifreeze, and if we didn't add enough sugar to our ice cream, we'd essentially be left with like a milk ice cube. So it's really important. At Dasher and Crank, we'll do savory ice creams sometimes, but even though we don't want sugar or sweetness to be the main flavor profile, we still need to add a certain amount of it to make sure the texture comes out right. So anyways, let's go in. That one's different. Whoa. I didn't taste these last two in the earlier tasting. Definitely getting a lot of butterfat on this one. This one actually kind of reminds me a bit more of my childhood, which that's super important when it comes to ice cream. Something that people don't often think about with ice cream is that it's not food in a traditional sense. You don't eat it because you're hungry. It's really more of an emotion. You eat ice cream to be happy, right? And when you're a kid, ice cream represents the ultimate treat, the ultimate reward, because ice cream is pretty much just fat and sugar, and fat and sugar releases dopamine in the brain, and it's really important for children's brains, right? Because children really need fat and carbohydrates to help them grow, so they crave it. Their brain lights up when they try ice cream, so they develop really strong positive associations with ice cream that are so powerful that even when we're an adult, kind of like a conditioned response, like Pavlov's dog. Our brain lights up with excitement just thinking about ice cream. And this kind of reminds me of the ice cream that I ate when I was a kid. I want to say maybe like Bluebell, or I don't know. It reminds me of elementary school. All right, let's try the next one. All right, last but not least, number 5. Let's see what we got here. Upon visual inspection, same thing. Not as many vanilla specks in there. We're seeing a little bit of striation. We've got a nice sheen to it, which says there's a decent amount of fat in it. So I'm curious to see how it'll come out. All right, so I wish you guys could feel what it feels like to cut through this. Cutting through this is like cutting through butter. This one is definitely a lot more overrun than the first one or the third one that we tasted. But that's not always a bad thing, it's just different. You're not getting as much bang for your buck. Oh, okay. This one might be the worst. At the end of the day, it's ice cream. There's no such thing as bad ice cream. There's just better ice cream, right? Definitely more boring, right? I'm not really getting any complexity at all. It really tastes more to me like a sweet cream ice cream than a vanilla ice cream. I'm getting very little vanilla on it. I'm getting very little fat. The finish, not really getting a long finish on this. Yeah, this is just a pretty boring ice cream. So I don't know. I guess it's time to start ranking these guys. Number one is clearly the best ice cream. It wasn't because I tried it first. It's head and shoulders above the rest, no question. 3 was the next best one. That's the one that just seemed to have really high quality base, really high quality ingredients. But number 1 had most vanilla, and you can even see it if you take a look at the ice cream now that it's all melted. You can see all of the specs in this one. It's just loaded with vanilla flavor, as opposed to, you know, these two guys over here, which there are barely any specs in it. So, you know, the proof is in the pudding, as they say. So number 1, clearly the best ice cream. I would say number 3 is the second best ice cream. That's the one that I thought might have been Ben & Jerry's. Okay, yeah, so number 2 and 5 definitely are the worst. All right, so that makes number 4 the third best. 5 is 5, 2 is 4. All right, so yeah, I'd say this is my official rating. Very curious to see what they end up being. All right, let's see what we got. All right, okay, I dig it. This is exactly what I thought it would be. I'm very happy with my assessments right here. Häagen-Dazs, they do plain ice cream the best. So they were founded in like 1960 in the Bronx. Their original 3 was chocolate, vanilla, and coffee, right? And obviously the most famous and most popular is their coffee ice cream. They get creaminess and quality of ingredients down the best. If you're looking for ice cream that have mix-ins, Ben & Jerry's is definitely going to be your move, which makes sense why that was number 2. I actually called that one. Ben & Jerry's, you know, they're from Vermont, and they're all about quality of ingredients, right? So they raise their own cows. It's all organic, it's all natural, happy cows from Vermont, and it really comes through here. And also, what is Ben & Jerry's about? It's all about the mix-ins, right? It's the Chubby Hubby, it's the Cherry Garcia, it's the cookie dough brownie, all that stuff. So it's really important that they have a good base. They're not necessarily throwing in a ton of vanilla beans, but it's more mild, and I'm cool with that. Very good ice cream. All right, number 3 is Talenti, which actually Talenti is a gelato, not an ice cream. I knew there was something a bit different about it, but it was good. For me, the Talenti salted sea salt caramel is the best that they do. And I really think that's something that separates the boys from the men. Hitting the caramel ice cream right is very hard to do because the difference between perfectly caramelized sugar and burnt sugar, it's a razor's edge. You know, I remember when I first learned how to caramelize sugar when I was like 13, the chef told me, caramelize the sugar as long as you dare, right? Bring it as close as you can to burning without burning it. And it's kind of like a way that ice cream cooks show off their hubris, is how far do they take their caramel. But if you hit it right, there's nothing better. I can't believe that you guys actually got Bluebell. That's what I thought it was. When I was a kid in elementary school, we used to have these single serving Bluebell guys, right? That you know what I'm talking about. You'd flip the top off, and sometimes they'd give you that little wooden thingy. That's exactly what it is. All right, cool. Yeah, so commodity ice cream, you know, widely available. You know, they're not super premium. This is just, you know, normal ice cream, but it's a classic. Wow, very cool. Publix, you let me down. I'm disappointed. I am a huge Publix guy, for, you know, like any good Miami boy. But so for those people across the country, Publix is our local supermarket. They make their own ice cream, which, you know, fun fact, there's only a handful of certified USDA dairy manufacturing plants in the entire state of Florida. Florida doesn't have a big dairy community because of our warm climate. Cows don't hold on to as much fat. You know, the fat that they hold on to is to help them get through the winter, and that fat comes through in their milk. So it doesn't make as much sense to raise dairy cows here in Florida. It's better in like Wisconsin and New Jersey and Pennsylvania, which is also why the best ice cream comes from those places. But Publix has a dairy manufacturing plant. They actually make their own ice cream as opposed to most supermarket products are really just co-brand, like private labels, right? And I've had some great Publix ice cream. I've never had their vanilla, but I'm just disappointed. Publix, I love you. You gotta step your game up. There you have it. These are 5 supermarket ice creams that you can get at the closest supermarket near you. My number 1 and number 2 picks, Häagen-Dazs, Ben & Jerry's. So go out and enjoy a pint today. Thanks, guys.